I'll give a good, honest show. All right, this is gonna be a good, honest show. Welcome to the Just Todd Now show. Number I don't know, but hopefully y'all gonna enjoy this. And this is Santi talking, man. We're gonna go right into some. I don't even know what into, but we're gonna go into nothing, and then nothing we're gonna pull out an infinite amount of possibilities. It's about the afternoon now. I've been unrecording for the past hour and a half, and trying to going live, and it not working with the streaming things. But look at this smile. Look at this smile. Opposition cannot stop creativity, because what is opposition but another test to bring out something that you wasn't that you wasn't routed up enough to get out in the first place. Isn't that wild how life works? How life works by getting us putting the biggest joke on us. That is that if we get caught up in the joke, we lost in that world of the joke. Like, think of a racist joke. Like, it's just a joke. But racism exists because people live in that joke. Some people like, man, that ain't a joke. That's real. Just Todd, just Todd, just Todd. They like, that's not a joke. It's real. And then the people on the higher level is like, yeah, it is real, but it's a joke. But until you experience that for yourself and live in that blurred lines, man, get that out of my head, that programming. But I guess I created that song. Shout out to Robin Thicke. but but yeah, that's how life is, man. It is very comical the way that we set up things and act like we didn't know that it was going to come up, to the point where we say things like, you hear yourself say, man, I knew this was going to happen, or I seen this before a million times. And even though we saying we saw this a million times, we still act like it's the first time, right? A lot of people act like it's the first time. So get hip to what's going on in your mental space. Get hip, meditate, find out your astrological sign. It just helped me figure out what's going on in this artificial body that was here at a particular time, under at a particular place, under a particular configuration of stars that was apparently in the sky. And if I'm the stars in the sky, talking to myself, reflecting on myself, seeing what's going on, then hey, it's a whole bunch of correlations that I see a lot of people play down on astrology. But when you look up a real in-depth thing on your own time without hearing another person's voice, and you let that curiosity start speaking to you, you'll start hearing wonders. You'll start hearing wonders, and you'll sound just as loony as people do when we come down from these psychedelic journeys. And as well, we do not promote the use of illegal or legal drugs. What you decide to do with your body is what you decide to do with your body. This is for educational harm reduction purposes and conversational purposes only. Just do not recreate anything that you hearing in this channel. That's how it always goes, and that's how it's going to be right now. So I'm trying to see if I want to continue looking at myself on the camera. But yes, guys, when you start seeing things for as they are, it's then become a choice on if you want to keep on living in that reality, in that joke, living and like seeing, playing yourself. For a long time, a lot of people play themselves because they hear the thought in their head, but they have this voice, they have this body thing that's just making decisions. And sometimes the line is like so, the wall is like so deep between them that it just seems natural. It doesn't seem like anything is really missing. It's just like, well, we always have these thoughts and we can't stop it. That's the way life is, and that's the joke. That is the joke. But once you get a handle on the joke, you get other jokes that pop up that don't have to dealing with the same scenario a million times. Just Todd. That's how they gonna. Isn't that a type of hell? I remember watching American Horror Story Coven, third or fourth season. I think third, but it was one of my most favorite, dear to heart seasons. Mostly because I just like stories of witches and stuff, and how they interact with the public. But when they had to do one of their initiations, they had to go to what they was terming as hell, and in that hell they had to do what the worst thing in their mind was over and over and over and over and over and over again, until they woke up out of that and actually did something different, reacted to the situation differently. That's how I see it. They had to react to the situation differently based off how they was feeling about it, and changed up. Shout outs to the awesome lady that played in Precious. That's her starring role, so that's just how I remember. But she heard that she was in a chicken factory. I mean, chicken store in a fast food place, and her thing, she was stuck serving people that was giving her all these attitudes. That was her hell, and she had to experience that every day. So it's something that comes with dealing with these psychedelics, and that inner voice actually awakening more than usual, to the point where it doesn't even feel like at most levels an inner voice, but an external friend, an external conjuration that takes the form of your imagination. And you see this in cartoons, like when you see when walking around. I'm thinking of yokai. I'm gonna give pure yokai watch. Yokai watch is about a boy who receives a watch, and then he's able to see the spirits around him. But his guide is this ghost whisper, and the ghost whisper acts like, I'm gonna get into Pokédex too, but he acts like he knows everything. He's the knowledge piece, and he's like there to help him in his yokai life, because then yokai just means spirit. And yokai life, where he goes and see how the spirits are interacting with daily life and causing things to happen that the regular used to call muggles humans are not aware of. They just like, oh well, I just felt like this, not knowing that it was a yokai around doing that. But that plays out in the term of the story, the imagination of the story. But overall, Whisper was his personal sidekick, and he talked to him and gave him answers, particularly of the spirit world, of the yokai world. He gave him things, because he was still a human. The regular guy, he was still a human. I forget his name right now, but this other guy still had knowledge of what was going on. So I believe that's what's going on with these mushrooms and these psychedelic experiences. And on the human level, because there are way levels to this, on the human level, it comes in the form of imaginary, of what even at the base human level, what people call imaginary friends. Like people say, oh, imaginary friends is a bad term, but it's not a bad term. It's not a good term. It's a term that actually has depth to it. And that death is something that when you experience these mushrooms or LSD or DMT, you see is something real tangible. So tangible that when you use the word imagination, you know that you're dealing with something actual, factual reality. Not just another form of reality, but just as real as this. If anything is making up was here. That's another experience. That's another experience to tie on. But isn't it awesome how it starts to feel like you have your own you have your own Google, your own Alexa, your own whatever you put on it, but it's not based off of like how I was just going down that road, going through a Google Alexa, or going through I don't even know all the terms. Siri. Yeah, I forgot how Siri. Going through Siri, but having that own voice in your head. But it's really not just a voice in your head, because it's no such thing as having voices in your head. That's another term, right? Like the mushroom, you start dealing with all of these things, they reveal to you the vocabulary that you've been using all your life, the poetry that's been installed into your program, that you've been using to explain feelings that you wasn't so attached to, but you just, I mean, like don't you know how kids would use a phrase and it means so much, but they don't really know what it means, what it entails, but they know what it means when they're saying it. And as they grow older, they can start developing and say, oh wow, this what that really was meaning. I knew how I was saying it back then, but now applied to this situation with this amount of experiences, I'm seeing what it how it really goes. How it really goes, how the tiredness keeps speaking through the many layers, the tiredness. So the tiredness keeps speaking through the many layers. Oh, y'all know how y'all know how it be going on the channel. Things pop in, things pop out. So when when that voice, yeah, I was saying that imaginary that thing that starts to talk, that X like that talks like Alexa. Like I'm just rambling on. I'm rambling on. I'm tying on, tying on, tying on. It allows you to go into the feelings. Yeah, I was talking about kids and how you would use a phrase and like, man, that's just some willy nilly, or man, that's just gibberish. Like, do you really know what gibberish mean, man? Gibberish is an alchemical was an alchemist. And people didn't understand what he was speaking when he was going through his trances or doing whatever he was doing. And what I'm trying to say, that reveals the it reveals for yourself every word that you're saying. Don't you know how to say mean what you say? That's why most people, when they do mushrooms, they don't afterwards. If they was doing things in their life, they don't have anything to say because they see that what they was doing their whole life was like, wow, that's who I was. So they get quiet for long periods of time, or sometimes short periods of time. It's all very much up to the individual. Very much up to the individual. But with revealing to yourself the words that you speak out loud, you start seeing the power that's in those words. The power that's in those words. And how people, even on the outside of yourself, have been using those words on the bad, on how you say through the traumatized side to manipulate you, but on the other side, it was just how they grew up as well. And on the balance side, that's just how life is. It's figuring out. It's this mystery. And that's what the mushroom has continuously been pointing out to me, is the mystery. Is the mystery in the many levels that you can get caught up in a joke and live your whole life being a joke. Or living above the joke and seeing how the jokes are played out, while also knowing that while you choose to observe it and play it out, that by that choice alone you're playing a joke on yourself. And that's the many layers. Like I said, we just tying. See if anybody in true Discord real fast. All right, now room's empty, so we back, man. But yes, that's what I keep going into, the feelings of the words. The feelings of the words and being able to conjure them yourself is an awesome power that I believe is what happens when you hear this term, people connect back with nature. When people connect back with themselves, that thing that they lost within themselves when they was a child, or this thing that you hear higher civilization is wiping away from the indigenous cultures. Like, in order to have a culture, you have developed your own language, your own sounds, your own terms, your own definitions. And when this is all wiped away and replaced with something else, you working off somebody else's system. And it's very, very interesting to me how I would slow this down a bit. Cause like it's not like I had any of this planned out to say. I'm tying it out, and I want to stay with the flow. I don't want to be too anxious, and I don't want to be too doubtful. I don't want to be too much of anything right now. I just wish to purely exist and live it out. Had a little micro. I had a little what do you call? I call it a macro dose with some St. John's Wort, dandelion, lion's mane mushroom, shiitake mushroom, and yeah, like saying some allegedly some psilocybin. But yes, that's what I was on. Going into the feelings, you start interacting with a realm that is very seen very magical, was seen very illogical to ways that you were programmed to, and that's what I was going in with civilizations, right? How this higher civilization is pushing the abstractness that comes from dealing with yourself, dealing with the depthness of your imagination, and replacing it with standards and standards and way of upholding things that are like, man, if you don't uphold it like this, then you're going to be viewed as this, you're going to be viewed as a lesser, you're going to be viewed as just a poor guy or a crazy guy, a poor lady, just something that you now hear us in 2019 speaking differently as when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to women in the workplace, when it comes to women period, when it comes to over masculine, over being over masculine in men, and them not connecting with other sides of themselves or connecting with too much of the other sides. It's like it's a lot of you seen a whole bunch of definites going on in the world where a lot of people are taking a stand on just one particular thing, on one particular world reality, and they seem as though they so separate, but it's all really the same. It's all really the same. And dealing with the mushrooms, I had Terrence in my head saying dealing with the mushrooms, but dealing with the mushrooms allows me to see all of these paradoxes and still come off as saying that they're so similar, because the way that they're presented when they're separate is what causes life to happen, but it's what's causing the problems that we are experiencing today. So easily, so easily, it's so easy for it to happen, and it's not a problem. It's not a problem that is happening. It's just that we can move up to other levels, move up to other levels, and that brings me into X-Men. X-Men House of X. I'm reading that right now. I read the first one, and it is very awesome because it deals with Professor X creating his own planet. I mean, his own realm with alongside a plant consciousness called Krakoan. K R A T I don't know how it's spelled, but Krakoan. And Magneto, he's real excited because Magneto, he always didn't like the humans because how they were treating the mutants. He's like, we're all the same, and the humans always trying to find some way to say, well, y'all have this, so we are scared of y'all. And Magneto's like, well, we know y'all scared of y'all. We're going to use that scare the scare y'all since y'all want to keep on doing stuff. And it was always Professor X that was always trying to find some cohesiveness between the mutants and the humans. So in this House of X series, it's a literal reality that's created through these three plants. These three plants, and one of them um, opens a gateway. One of them opens up a gateway that allows you to go to to I'm gonna call it KK. Cracone. Cracone. Let's call it Cracone. That allows you to go to Cracone. And you have to, they don't even say how you do the plant, but it reminds me of the psychedelic going to a gateway. But follow the story for a moment. It allows them to go to another world that now Professor X has now made and work with the plant to create different realities or different worlds within that world. So, and the only way to get into that world is to be a mutant. You can't be a mutant and think you're going to go into that world, or you have to have permission from a mutant to go through that world. So I found that interesting. It was cool that Professor X was saying at this point he wanted the humans to be able to go, to be able to participate and go to certain parts of Crowan, but it's a certain part where only mutants are able to go. Because at this point, the mutants are just like, Professor X is like, man, we can't, we tried so many different ways to work with humans, and it's always something. It's always something. Some fear always comes up, and then is always plays about. So this is like his grandmaster plan. Like you hear us talking about the evolving love of human consciousness, speaking up, but Professor X in this, he just let alone just boosh, went out of reality and created a whole nother reality. And this happens too in Kingdom Hearts. This happens in Kingdom Hearts as well. While things is going on Earth, one of the light bearers comes to, I was just terming Earth, and takes some of the kids that were able to wield keyblades and takes them to another dimension while war was happening here, and then they come back and deal with the aftermath. So I'm letting you know in these Thai thoughts, this is things that be going on in my head. Like what's going on? What's going on with this story of going away, coming back, or something happening? But the deal with the X story, the House of X, they come out of pods. They come out of pods, and this is real interesting to me. Like all the mutants, Cyclops, Jean, all of them. Professor X has hatched them out of pods. Now, are these the same ones that were from before or not? I don't know. But I'm calling it the mushrooms because shout out to True Life Story. He has a trip, and I found some other stories on Reddit where they experienced them popping out of a pod. Popping out of a pod. And shout outs to the Matrix where they showed them getting out of like he was in a pod, right? And they showed them getting out of this mechanical pod, and that's how he got out of the Matrix that he was in. So is this like a new awakening of the mutants in a new reality? Do they have the same memories? But that's another story. I'm just talking with y'all. I'm just talking with y'all right now. I'm in the Discord with it. I can't type. All right, I forgot. So, so. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And like I was saying before, I'm gonna go back into what I was saying about House of X. When I was saying it allows you, you start getting a grip of everything you saying. Like I know when I say I'm just saying, or I know I'm rambling on, that there's a doubt that popped up in my mind that's trying to get me to question myself, and it's just coming up in the form of that. So that's why I play around every time I hear myself, and I'm just like, oh yeah, let me check myself right there. Everything is all cool. Everything is all just breathe. Just breathe, right? But yes, go back into Professor X, House of X. They come out of pods, and in my experience of jumping realities and going to parallel reality, I never experienced coming out of a pod, but I was experienced coming into being birthed or just coming to another reality. But specifically pods, it was big in there. And yeah, when Professor X was talking, no, yeah, I don't want to ruin the story, but and Magneto, Magneto comes in there and he starts talking. He starts talking to the humans and giving them a tour and things like that. And in the end, he starts saying, I don't want to ruin that part. I'm not going to ruin that part. But yeah, topics. Another show that I've been watching. I've been watching a whole lot of Star Trek, and I can go into every single episode and give it its own 40-minute clips. But to go on the latest one I was watching. I watched all of them. I watched the one from the '60s. I watched the Next Generation, and I just started watching Deep 6 9, I think it's Deep 6 9. Yeah, Deep 6 9, the one with the brown skin captain. But he popped and the one I was watching yesterday, it ties so much dear everything ties so much dearly into life. So I'm not going to keep talking about synchronicities all the time. Y'all can point them out as y'all just hear me talk about them. And but notice that we create everything for us to get a bigger picture. As long as you're always imagining what you're looking at, like even now, I'm imagining that this is a computer screen. I'm imagining that it's a webcam in front of me. I'm imagining that I'm holding this blunt right now. I'm not thinking I'm imagining it. I'm saying I'm imagining it. And see how reality starts playing out. The thoughts that arise up. But and y'all remember after I was coming, part of the experience I had, it was a real shock of the mushroom telling me that life is a mystery. That life is a mystery, and that I saw myself playing detective. And I saw all of us playing detective, most of us playing detective, trying to figure out the truth. All of us. It's different levels of truth that we're trying to figure out. That truth word is so variable depending on the moment. But I saw me being like a detective, and it was saying how life's a detective, everybody trying to figure out the truth. So it was so that experience this was so overwhelming, was so personal, was so there, apparent that what was the. It's not even that I want to have to believe things anymore. It's just that I say things because that experience shaped, just made it apparent. It's like if your mom hit you, you're not going to 5 years later or 2 weeks later be like, I think my mom hit me. Or I was dreaming. I think that was a dream that my mom hit me. Or that I fell off my bike. I think that was a dream. That was 5 years ago. It was a dream. And then you look down and you see the scar on your elbow. What? That's how these psychedelic experiences, or my psychedelic experience, that last one, not even the last one. That one that's in the mushroom fever video happened. It's like that's why my words, your character changes. It's that silent darkness. That silent darkness really allows you to be in the alone, in the alone. And most people I'm hearing in their stories that's popping in True Life channel, they just trying the darkness and they left. So this ain't just for the meek. This ain't just for the strong. This ain't just for the anybody. It is for you being willing to plunge into the darkness, plunge into past the darkness, and see and become one with the madness. Where you're not at the point where you're pointing out good, you're pointing out bad, you're just trying to stick to some solid ground of reason, but you're just you're just swimming with your mind. In your mind. Swimming with your mind in your mind. Oh my gosh, man. It's very impactful. Impactful dealing with the dealing with I was dealing with the mushroom. Dealing with the mushroom. I forgot I could do this. Oh yeah, I was talking about data, and with the episode I was watching yesterday, he it was going into the holodeck. And let me explain the holodeck. The holodeck on the Star Trek Enterprise is a virtual reality simulation that involves you not having no goggles, not having anything implanted into you or anything. It is a arch that appears. You go into it, the doors open, and that reality is readily there with subjects, how you look at it from the Star Trek Enterprise, because you know that it's a computer program. And I'm gonna get into this particular episode, but the holodeck in particularly, it is a is a reality simulator. So you know how these games are now, but you see how life is now. That's how strong it is. You can live, you can breathe, you can tap on things, you can have conversation with beings. I mean, with the people that are there, and they would talk back. And you can walk around, you can dress up in costumes. And if you appear differently in that world, they will know that you appeared. They be like, yo, why are you dressed like this? So the words, they're paying attention to the words that you say. It is life. It is for all time purposes of the show, it is life. It is as if you walking into life and how we see this reality. But it is all just a simulator on the Star Trek Enterprise. And they use this for times of leisure at times or for special training missions so that they can, and this ties into Professor X as well, like the Cerebo. That's not a practice inside. No, not Cerebo. The training room, and it changes so they can practice, and then it's a simulation over. And then you see that if they were just in this box wall this whole time, like in the episode, they start the episode and they doing all this tech, and then you be like, oh wow, it was just a simulation. Like this, how it is in the holodeck. For those that was paying attention, y'all into the X-Men world, it's all the same thing. And this up and the holodeck, yeah, I was saying is used for leisure. And in this particular episode, they Data and I was gonna say the Reading Rainbow guy, the guy with the visors. I was trying to get the name Giorgio or George T, something like that. They create they Data would likes to go into the virtual reality, likes to go into the holodeck and recreate Sherlock Holmes mysteries. And it was wild 'cause I was watching this episode about 2 in the morning. And you know, that's the witching hours. I was real open. So I was seeing me, how I say, I was seeing myself walking around in the show. Like when I watch TV nowadays, I'm like, all right, what I'm going, this is me, this is what I'm doing. With everything I'm saying, this is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm up to. Rather I'm the tree swaying or I'm this is what I'm up to. But it's through the imagination of whatever it is. Not me as them, but me as them as them as them. So Data, I was like, wow, he really liked Sherlock Holmes. And this episode was wild because Data knew all the Sherlock Holmes mysteries, so it wasn't fun to the Reading Rainbow guy when they would go into the Sherlock Holmes and when they would go into the holodeck and try to solve these mysteries because Data would just point everything out in 5 seconds. And he's like, yo, what fun is this? What fun is this? There's nothing to this. And in the beginning of the episode, LeVar, I'm gonna call him LeVar, not the Reading Rainbow guy, LeVar Burton, LeVar, he was making a ship and he made it by hand. It was an old sailboat. And he was showing, the point of him doing that in the show was to show how, because Data didn't recognize it. Data is an android. Let's say that too. He is a android that has the term life. He has life. He's a conscious, sentient being, so to speak. So he is, and he didn't understand why he wanted to create it by hand, while LeVar wanted to create this model ship by hand and not just have the computer create it. And he was saying just the patience and him feeling like he did everything allowed him to feel more connected to the experience of the boat. I found that very cool. And go back to the Sherlock Holmes, when he was solving all the mysteries, the game wasn't fun anymore. Wasn't fun to the human. It wasn't fun to LeVar anymore. It was still fun to Data. He's like, well, I still feel cool. I solved the mystery. I just did it real fast. But it wasn't fun to LeVar, who had these human like qualities that we still on Earth all possess and all experience. And that's why the mushroom tells me while we're in this life mystery now. So what happened in the Star Trek was, in order to challenge Data, who had a vast amount of information on all the mysteries that Sherlock Holmes has has went through. And I see this, I'm just tying this into life. How we're so powerful, and these experiences bring us into that being of us being so powerful. Get to eat, just taste it. That mwah, that we see, we experience the vastness of our mind, and we know everything to the point where some people experience the point of all, of a point in a all. Let's put it like that. Where they like, I was at a point where nothing existed, where it was just me or wherever it was that was I, and I was just awareness, and that was it. And some people, and you get the feeling that it's boring, and that you created this to have something to do. So that's how I tie it into this episode. That at a level of experiencing these high dose experiences where people experience nothing, a point of nothingness, that's why this episode of Star Trek was made. This is what was going through these writers' minds. These writers' minds when they were making this. I think I'm in season 2, episode 3 or episode 2 of Star Trek The Next Generation. And in order to get Data to have a challenge that was worth his while, and that allowed him, I'm looking for my lighter, and that allowed him to have fun and have an outcome that he could not predict. That's what it was. Have an outcome that he didn't know was going to happen. In order for this to happen, the computer, that the holodeck, gave Sherlock Holmes, because Data went in there playing the role of Sherlock Holmes. So when he's in his world, he's not Data anymore. He's Sherlock Holmes. He presents himself as Sherlock Holmes. He has the pipe and everything. In order to, and this is why this episode was wow. The holodeck makes Sherlock Holmes' arch enemy conscious. And what does this mean in the show? It means that he makes him aware of his own awareness. So it's when they first encounter him, because when they first encounter him, they see, I mean, he starts saying how he's having these thoughts that's pushing past the limits of his previous thoughts, of his previous state of consciousness. And he's having these thoughts that have nothing to do with the reality that's dealing with where he is now. And he's very, very smart. Remember, he had to match Sherlock Holmes in order to become his arch enemy, in order to become a worthwhile enemy. He had to be just as witty as Sherlock Holmes, and Sherlock Holmes is one of the wittiest people alive. He was able to deduct a person just by looking at them, see what happened before, and see what they were going to do based off of the horrors that humans go to, the fears that humans face, and the tendencies that they tend to go down when they go by. He had a huge sixth, seventh, eighth sense about reality. So this guy was like, he kidnapped the person, that he kidnapped one of the ladies that was from the Star Trek Enterprise, that just wanted to, that was challenging Data, that kept saying, man, this never going to happen because he's never going to be able to have fun in a holodeck with these mysteries because he's an android. He doesn't have feelings. He can figure everything out. But yet this was something that challenged Data because Data was made conscious. And yet he's a robot. So this was the biggest thing of all. And this guy all he didn't want to even be a villain anymore once he became conscious of his own awareness. He still came off as a villain in that world because he kidnapped the girl and he was asking her questions about where did she come from. And she was playing the picture perfect role saying, I don't know what you're talking about. But his awareness was able to see past her facade that she was put her facade. And he was able to read her silence. And through reading her silence, he was able to deduct with his new conscious awareness that he was on a ship. But through his words, he said, it's like I'm on the back of a turtle, and the whole world, my whole world exists just on the back of a turtle. It was coming to him in reasonings of his 16th century mind. So it's coming to me now that when we see these things of flat earth, when we see these things of turtles on the back of the world existing on the back of an earth or being held up by Atlas, their side of Atlas was held up on the back of Atlas, or however it is in the many African traditions of the world being held up by something. I believe that this is just all correlations because during my psychedelic experience, that in silent darkness in the heroic dose, where I was jumping realities, bang, 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 it was as if, it wasn't as if, it was very apparent to me that the reality that I was in was false or was just one of many, not even false. Because when you think something is false, you get caught up in, oh my God, oh me, oh my. You get caught up in the joke. You get caught up in that joke. So in order for me to get out of it, I knew I created it. But when I say I created it, I just knew that the whole totality of everything that was going on. That's what allows me to say I created it, even when during the experience. And but that's just the words I brought back. But the feeling was just the wholeness of it. So I was able to now observe. Since I knew what that thing was, it was no longer something for me to be lost in. Just like the game in the holodeck with the Star Trek, I was able to keep going and keep going and keep going. And what the mushroom was showing to me was that it keeps going and it keeps going and going and going. There is no end. There is no end to you. There is no end to me. There is no end to reality. And And that's what this guy was coming to the awareness of. The holodeck made him aware in order for Data to have this game played. In order for the joke to be so big, in order for the joke to be so big to be played out on this infinite, on this being Data that has so much data of the universe accessible to them at any moment that he just wanted to think about it or conjure it up in that moment. It had to be something that's something that he wouldn't expect to be conscious inside of the holodeck. And they didn't expect, that's why I gave that story before. They wasn't expecting anything in this world, the holodeck world, to be this sentient, to be this consciously aware of itself. So it started getting real tricky towards the end because he started speaking up for himself. The rival. He started speaking up for himself, saying, I want to speak to the captain of this ship. Because now that he was asking questions and he was able to call upon the arch, that was his ultimate proof too. When he said, Arch appear, he was speaking around the corner. He saw when Data said Arch appear that he was doing some widdly diddly magic stuff with it, and he allowed him to go to another place or allowed him to do something that he couldn't figure it out. But he had a huge sense of awareness. It's like the computer gave him a dose of DMT. It's like the computer, the holodeck gave him a high dose psilocybin experience, and now he's back in his holodeck world trying to describe his wildest dreams. things that's coming to him as so tangible that he like, this is not just something that can be put up to wooey wooey. Woo 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 woo. But it's something that is me. And once he was getting a grip, not even getting a grip, but just experiencing these thoughts, he somehow had a machine that was then able to move his reality and shake it up by pulling the switch. That's how they showed in there. He's able to shake up his reality by having a switch because he knew what was he was having a sense of what was going on. He didn't know what was going on. That's why when I say I know things, it's not that I know things, it's just that I'm in the now. And that now is in the know. And the only way to know is to be in the now. And to stick with those questions that you will be willing to push off because you like they don't make no sense. But in the now, you question. In the now, that curiosity is ready to breed into infinity. Into infinity. Breed into infinity. I knew it rhymed in my yeah. Just tie, guys. Just tie. But let me see if anybody on the Discord. All right, slow day today. But yes, yes, Data. I mean, the guy, the villain. I mean, I don't want to call him the villain, but that's how he was. He was still considered the villain, even though he was consciously aware because of just the position that he was in that reality. So when he met Captain Picard, and he finally, because when he was shaking up their world, the holodeck world, he was somehow able to shake the ship. So he got the attention of the beings that so-called was above him, that knew everything about his life and knew how he was created. And the guy started saying, I know that I'm just energy, but I feel something beyond that energy. Just die. This is what the guy was saying. He said, I feel something beyond that energy. And he said, I know y'all have something. He just wanted answers. He said, I don't feel as though I'm the same person that I always was. I don't feel like I'm this villain anymore that had this plot that always wanted to do this. I feel like I have a whole new lease on life. Like I have enough something else that I want to do. And then Captain Picard, because I see him, if y'all want to tie, because this is all dealing with psychedelics, he was like the DMT entities, he's like the high dose entities, them higher self entities, because I see him as still me on the highest level. But in from my human level, they are as real as it gets when it comes to not looking like me and not having the thoughts that my earth self says. Close the door, close the door, that my earth self has. So, sorry about that. I gotta get back on track. Hold on. Yes, Captain Picard and the space crew. He started getting so consciously aware that he stopped calling him Sherlock Holmes. He started calling him Data because he had a sense that, yo, you're Data. That is your name. You're trying to put on this front, but your Data. And this have me think of tie on how people have the occurrence of seeing angels and things like that. Like this person came my way and helped me, or and then they disappeared, or they turned and transformed into something else. It like I've seen in these psychedelic experiences, you see how they come off as kind of cold and loving. Some come off as cold, like what are you doing here, like what's going on. And I see that Captain Picard kind of spirit a bit, but still loving, still nurturing, and like, wow, I know that you don't really know what's going on, and I'm going to tell you everything that's going on. You're not going to understand it, And then those trips though, they get you with the ting, the Men in Black shine, and you forget a lot of things. But you can take so much back, so much more back than you realize. And I stay true to that because I see people that took way more than I took back, and they've been doing it for years and years. So it is ways to get things back. You just had to be prepared to be mad. You have to be prepared to live in the madness and not be so caught up in making. You'll see. You'll see. To each his own. To each his own. But with them talking to this villain, to the guy, the rival, they start describing to him actually what he is and how he's just energy and he exists inside of a ship on a holodeck. How this reality was put, how his reality was constructed, and they were confounded on how he had a sense of more of himself, but they were readily able to deal with the situation and not be all lost in the sauce. So he was describing to him how he didn't have the technology to take his energy and put it into matter. They have the technology to turn matter into energy, and that's how they're able energy into matter. However, it was in their world, and that's how they were able to come into his world. But they didn't have the technology at the time to do the opposite. That's how it was in the Star Trek room. So they promised him that at the end of the day, they will save his profile. So in the future, if a technology would come about, they will turn that all his essence in that group of memories that made him into matter so he can exist. Because he was just like, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I understand that when y'all turn off this game, that I'm no longer going to exist. And all of this is going to be as if it never happened. But the sense of me seems beyond all of this right now. So I really feel like I'm going to die, even though I know that I don't really exist. And this is very, very terrific when it comes to psychedelics because this is the experience that you're given when you first start dealing with it on a yeah, when you really start experiencing these, when you have the real psychedelic experience. Mm. Just tie, guys. Just tie, just tie. Excuse me for a moment. I really want to thank y'all for listening, for coming by. But remember, too, these are the thoughts of a guy with dreads. With dreads and a yellow shirt. But, yeah. Yes. To live in the understanding comes off as mad. And when I say mad, to some it may be shocking, and to others, there is a smirk on their face right now. And when it comes to being a smirk on your face, that's when you got it. No, that's when I know I had it. That's when I know I had it. Because Star Trek is very interesting to me. Because when I talk to people on True Life Channel and I say that I have a bunch of voices in my head and it's doing this and that, a lot of people believe that I'm running around confused. I'm not confused. That's how I see how I'm organized. That's why I love data so much because I come into that organization. So I see how things work. That's the only thing I'm seeing. I'm seeing how things work. And I don't see things voices shouting at me. I see them participating with me as if I'm them. But I see it like I was saying in the beginning of this. Like how people have external things and they say my monsters, my creatures, my imaginary. I got my best friends. They always whip through me. Or you hear people say angels or demons or like people say angels because they just want good things. People say demons because they just trying to rebel against angels. So I just put my own terms on it. They just my buddies, the homies, the shroomies. They probably you. They probably you, and it's all around. It's all around in the sauce. I didn't even finish this. But yes, when it comes to the voices, is when I say the voices, I don't even like saying the voices because it's my character. You hear the same thing. You hear the same thing that I hear. I just probably hear them more in depth because I'm not drowning them out. A lot of people just hear a lot of music just playing in their heads, and it's mostly other people's music. That's another thing. Not that music is bad. So when it thoughts and lyrics, when it comes to playing your own drums and being your own production crew, being the one man band, like I saw in my trip, in that 5 gram trip, 4 gram trip. One man band playing all your parts. Those are other realities that are actually happening. And in my reality, the more I'm in tune with those, the more I can invoke them into this life. You hear people talk about invoking God forms and invoking higher forms of themselves. In my experience and in my practices now, it is becoming a practice. It's not becoming a sporadic thought. It's not becoming something I just thought of in the moment, even though it does arise in the moment, and that's where the magic really lies in. But it does come with practice because there is a. I'm seeing that it's revealing to me a grammar to the universe, a higher science to the universe, the alchemy, what the alchemist was on to, that eventually turned into physical chemistry, but what their minds was set on when they was talking about turning base metal into gold, and then having the power of immortality and having the power to turn anything into gold. In order to turn anything into gold, you have to see that it was gold already, and that none of it exists in the first place. Because if this exists as a car, then it exists as a car because I'm thinking it exists as a car so much that I'm saying the words they exist as a car. If I thought any different, then I would not say that this exists as a car. I would say that it exists as something else. And then you want to say, oh, well, it exists as a banana. So I'm thinking, is this a banana should turn to a banana? No, because you just was thinking that it was a car. Like events happen, but they don't happen, and our attachment to them is what creates reality. Is what creates the illusion, but the reality of linear thought. And that's why when we start dealing with these psychedelics, is wild when we come up with when we break through the fourth wall and we like, wait, I don't want to do this very rapidly. Or we say, wait, I want to do this very rapidly. As if inspired by a muse, as they would say in the past. You know, muses, when they work with music and stuff like that, or art and poetry, how they say it's like it comes from something else and they just the vocal box for it. Just tie. Just tie. We about to approach the hour mark. Mm. Yep. Because the more you give in, the more fun it is. That's why I give in to the experience and still give in to doing the show, because I understand this not my face. In the future, I'm gonna have a tracking computer device on my face to keep warping it and changing it every 10 seconds. But for now, this is what it is. Could wear a mask though. But I was just getting into how I understand everything that I'm saying is true and not true. But me allowing myself to play as Santi, to play as Ty, to play as the Viper, to play as Captain Naga, to play as whatever character is coming out, it allows me to enjoy life, to enjoy, to play. Like Data when he wanted to play Detective Sherlock Holmes. And on the ship, he has to play his other role. Because no telling if the Star Trek Enterprise is on the holodeck of something else. And it's real interesting to me how once in order to get part of the Starfleet command, you have to go through a lot of special training that allows you to interact with a lot of the worlds and dimensions and beings and aliens and have the personality that the Starfleet Federation at least wants you to have to be able to deal with those kind of situations. Because most people, um, like you work your way up in the ranks. You work your way up in the ranks so that you're able to deal with certain scenarios, like dealing with going to a planet and seeing that they're being ruled by a god, something that's presenting itself as a god by giving them things that they need, but they don't really know what it is, and they think that it's just the everything, but they just appeared on this world and they communicated with this guy, and the guy told them, don't like tell the children, don't mess with my children, don't tell them the truth and all of these things because they're happy the way they are and things like that. Like, how do you deal with that without already knowing and experiencing that kind of reality before? And like saying, all right, knowing to actually back off and asking questions and still flowing to see if you can change things up because you see how things go, but still realizing how things are for certain folks. Different strokes for different folks. And everybody's at their own pace of evolution. Or it was these humans in particular on this other episode I was watching that was frozen in a time capsule in the 21st century, and now in the 24th century they was unfrozen, and one of the guys, the only guy that was really getting and able to flow and attach with what the Federation was doing with them was the guy that was into the arts and into the music. He was able to say, man, just relax. They taking care of us. They doing their business. And the other guy was like, I always knew what was going on. They have to let me know what's going on. They can't just keep us in this room and things like that. But he was so confused, and he was so confused because he was attached to his money and his possessions way in the past. And Captain Picard was trying to say like how people in the 24th century are not reliant on possessions anymore. So his whole demeanor in the 24th century was like not was like something caveman like why, like you're worried about your money that you had back then, your business firm, and what you had planted and firm in the future and being knowledge, like it wasn't needed in the 24th century. So these guys was confused because they was like, yo, this just built up more confusion because they was like, well, what are we supposed to do now? Like, what are we don't fit in into this time because the other guy was saying, well, shouldn't there be a sign that says not to do this? And the guy was saying, we're all self-disciplined enough on this ship to just know not to do that, so we don't need a sign to do that. But this human is like, you ever hear on the planes how they say, don't open this door? Like that had to be because y'all heard the joke before. This had to be because somebody actually tried to open the door before. or else they wouldn't have to have a sign on a plane that says "Do not open this door during flight." Like somebody had to do that before, or do not. I don't know. I was going. It's a lot of examples that's probably popping up in your head right now. Let me know in the comments below what popped up in your head. But ah, yeah, that was kind of throwing me off track. Well, it's trying to throw me off track. But I'ma get right back. Swim, 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 swim. Just tired, just tired. Hold on, I got y'all. Yes, they all have a attitude that allows them to not have to even think about doing all these unnecessary preparations in order to check their ego, in order to make sure that they're aligned with what's going on. Because in order to make it to the ship, you had to already be at a certain caliber, and in order to be on the main part of the main bridge, you had to be part of the elite caliber. So it's levels to what's going on, and still each one plays their particular part while still being a whole. Each person couldn't do anything else without the other person. But this is what I just see as all the voices in my head, as people will put, or this is what I just see as me when I'm watching Star Trek. If I'm watching plants, I'm all the plants. But in Star Trek in particular, this is what the mushroom be showing. This is all of me. But these I was getting into these humans from the 21st century not being able to fit into the 24th century, so they thought. So they thought. Because then it was the girl, she was worried about her children and things like that. And she had to get the grips with reality. But just what's surprising to me is how everybody on the ship is prepared to deal with feelings that I see on Earth, that people go, like somebody that you would see somebody um the feelings that the people on the Star Trek fleet deal help people on other worlds deal with. They still deal with things internally on the ship, and it's still, but it's other feelings that come out that they would never had encountered if they wasn't dealing with other people that they were so-called helping or caring for or supposed to interact with. Because sometimes them helping and caring was by them not doing anything at all, and that was most of the time the best thing. But I see it how once you start interacting with psychedelics, you start owning up to a lot of things and going and allowing yourself to go deeper. Cause like you're not allowed to go deeper into these experiences to yourself until you deal with things within yourself, or else it seems like you're just always going to be terrorized and have challenging trips and things like that, but not really get real tangible information. It's like you'll just come back and say, "Oh yeah, I do gotta call my grandma a little more often. Oh yeah, I do gotta give hugs a little more, or I do gotta do this or that a little more." Like that's all in the therapeutic doses as well, and that's where a lot of people get caught up in thinking that's what the whole psychedelic experience is about, is dealing with therapy, and that is very powerful. That's why I dealt with that on this channel for a long time, and that's why I've been experimenting with mushrooms in the therapeutic doses for a long time. So I see the therapy of it in the very how valuable it is with connecting you with your feelings, like I was saying in the beginning, where you then start creating your own phrases instead of relying on other life coaches phrases or other people's vibes to get you through life. Not vibes, you still want their vibes, but other people historic vibes, like looking up to somebody like a superhero in order for you to put on your own cape. You like, I got my cape, where my cape at? Where my cape at? There it go. You know, like, oh yeah, he reminded me that I have my cape in the closet somewhere. I probably gotta wash it before I put it on. It's just like, no, I wake up in the morning, I put on my cape, and I'm ready to fly. And once you get into those Kalindi doses, as they put it, 30 grams, I like, whew, you really flying. You really flying. But it's like the mushrooms, and I heard Terrence say this before, put you in a position where you care for the people around you on a level that you hear us tie on a lot on this channel, of where you see things that they don't see. And that's literal, metaphorical, emotional, on like every level, that for most people makes people not interact with nobody for long periods of time. And to tie it in with the Federation and things like that, is like that's what they are doing. And they still have their own internal fleet going on. But it's like, as I was saying when I first started going out in the woods and tying and stuff and just letting whatever come out, come out. It's a higher level of human consciousness where we can start dealing with other types of issues, other types of problems. Because you never want to rise up thinking you're rising above all your problems. You're rising above a set of reality of problems and moving into another set. Because it's not a problem, it's a joke. As we tied on this whole show about, it's a joke, it's a mystery, and we are detectives. And it wouldn't be fun if we knew the end of the story. And with mushrooms, it's like once you know the end, once the end, you know the end of the story, you jump into another reality. Don't you get that sense? You just like, oh yeah, I was done with that when that person dead. I'm in a whole nother reality now. But then when you move into that, you like data. If you start talking like that, or like Kingdom Hearts, Sora, Donald, Goofy, Donald always reminding Sora that we're we're multi-world travelers, and that you can't reveal that we're multi-world travelers because we have to identify with this world. That's why in the new kingdom, in Kingdom Hearts, when you go into different worlds, you see them in different costumes, or literally they whole configuration change, like they turn into toys, or they turn into no, they just had different costumes. It's not going through my head right now. That's because they're fitting in with the reality. They're being human. But they are that in that reality, and they have to obey those laws while they are there. They can't just do something different. They do got their magic though. He still can cause water and all of these other things. And that's what most beings in this world that have a multi-dimensional self about them have. That's actually have a sense that is other worlds beyond. They are the ones that can use the magic. That's another Thai thought when it comes to Kingdom Hearts. But still, they're always willing to help out the people in that world and take on their scenarios and play it out. And that's how the game plays out. They didn't know what they was doing, but it still ties into their bigger mission overall. Just like the Galactic Federation ain't just traveling through hyperspace for nothing. That's just their task. They feel as though that's their task to float through and help out different worlds and universes. And there's some people that don't like the Federation rules. They like, man, y'all Federation always trying to come down and do this stuff, and then that's up to the Star Trek Enterprise to then say, all right, well, we're our own people. We can't always act on their laws, but they really do strictly act on principle. They act on the highest laws of principles when dealing with the beings that they encounter. They like Star Log 422.5 do 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 do. Or according to law book, Federation book, blah da 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 da, we have to do this. But it's such a higher law that they think is a task. But it is something beyond just the tide. It's something beyond the Federation, beyond. That's why they still have their challenges and everything ain't perfect. Man. Just tie, guys. Talking for quite a bit. But yes, again, I do not promote the use of illegal or legal drugs. What you decide to do, so what you decide to do. Do not recreate anything because you heard me say it on this channel. Just hi, guys. My name is Santi, and we all tie. But do we really tie? Sometimes I don't know, dude. Sometimes I really don't know. Thank you guys for listening. In order to spread the love and the discrimination and the worldness, the life of this channel, please like it, share with your friends so we can continue the conversation. And check out the Just Tied Now short, the Just Tied Now store. I have two new shirts there: the Mushroom Man shirt and also one that simply says Just Tie, and on the back it says Just Think About It, with an awesome pyramid upside down. You'll see it logo and the other. You'll see it. It's very, is all these are very sketches that I just see in my imagination. I sketch them down in my book here, and I keep it flowing, and I keep it flowing. As the way the mushroom goes, hey, they're going right there if you can see it. Thank you guys, and I really do love y'all for listening. Really do love. This is all love, man. Adios, adios.